Hi guys, it's Clockwork down to Noodles again, and this is the episode 3 or video 3 of the new series, What is in a Design? Each episode is going to focus on a solitary anime character from within a different anime series, one which I find interesting, and we're just going to take that character, break him down. We're going to see what their design is doing, what colours are going on, and how that leads into bringing that character to life and telling us subtly something about that character in particular, and sometimes at times even foreshadowing what's going to happen with that character. Make sure you guys give this channel a big fat subscribe. We have just crossed 300 and I am so happy and thankful for you guys for doing that. Each week I break down any airing anime that I have chosen. I've got 4 going on, and there will be a video from What's in Design. Also, a Discord channel. This is a place where you get a notification whenever a video goes up on the channel. You can also talk to me because I'm floating around there, and you get notifications if there is a delay on a project or if I'm going to be releasing something early. Great place to be, and you guys are very, very supportive and great fun to talk to. So let's get going. This is What's in a Design video 3. Today we are looking at a character from one of the giants in the anime world, or should I say titan. Yes, spoilers lay ahead for the anime and the manga up to this character's sad demise. We're going to be looking at the manga and the anime up until Erwin's death. Yes, we are covering Erwin Smith, the commander of the Survey Corps, nicknamed by the writer himself, Eyebrows. He's one of my favourite characters from Attack on Titan. So Attack on Titan is a show that aired in 2013. It is indeed currently airing. However, Erwin's character sadly passes away in 2019 in part 2 of season 3. The voice actors. Let's take a look at both our voice actors, English and Japanese wise, have got something in common, and it's quite fun as well. The Japanese voice actor is Daisuke Ono, and he is indeed one hell of an actor. Yes, he plays Sebastian from Black Butler. Also, the English voice actor, which is John Michael Tatum, he as well is one hell of a voice actor and a mad scientist. Steins Gate was a thing, guys. A little hint there that there is a character I'm looking at breaking down from Steins Gate. Let's look at Erwin's height. The first 2 videos from What's in a Design, we've kind of looked at the shorter characters. Erwin is not short. Erwin is not short whatsoever. He is a whopping 188 centimeters or 6'2". He is indeed the largest character currently on What's in a Design. He towers over most of the fellow peers, and people naturally look up to him. He is a natural born leader, and the height definitely plays to his advantage. Let's look at his hair. So he has very light blonde hair. It is very neatly presented with a parting to his left, where his hair sweeps gently over his right hand side. He has got very short sides. Kind of looks like he has sideburns, but I think it's just the fact that that's where his hairline would be if he had a bit more hair. His very neat appearance helps play into the position that he holds. His appearance is everything. He is the leader. People look up to him, people look to him, and his appearance does help build his reputation. He is also very neatly presented, where he follows the uniform rules. So if you saw video number 1, where we look at Sakaido, he wore the uniform, but he wore the coat around his waist. There is none of that in this. Erwin always wears his uniform correct. The only times that we see the appearance for Erwin change is when he ends up in hospital after losing his arm, and we see that his hair is no longer parted, but it simply just lays flat, and he ends up developing some stubble. This is simply because he is in hospital and he now has to adjust to a new life, one where he only has the one single hand. So at the moment as well, him being in hospital, he doesn't need to appear neat or anything. The only person really coming to see him right now is Levi. The slip in his appearance too is quite nice, because we actually get a little slip into seeing his true self, where he also reveals a bit of a spooky smile to his friend Levi. He is also not neat during the military coup episode, where he ends up getting captured and beaten up and he's a bit disheveled. But again, he is basically making history in this episode, so I think we can forgive him for not quite looking quite neat. He also, during this segment, he isn't wearing his uniform. He simply wears the white shirt underneath, simply because he is making history. He is overthrowing the false king and his lies, and he's putting an end to a bit of an era, so the uniform disappears. It's an episode we don't need his uniform. However, note that the uniform and his neatness returns for the final part of season 3, where he ends up going out nice and neat, and he dies as a heroic figure still wearing uniform and upholding a very nice appearance. Let's now jump to his eyes. Erwin has some very pale icy blue eyes. These eyes are very piercing and they are very commanding. He is a leader and everybody looks to him. His resolve and his command are both very, very strong, and his eyes are simply a window into that gateway of how determined he really is. Blue also is a colour of trust. Erwin trusts his men, however, he is the first person to work out there is a spy amongst them, and he immediately starts to work out exactly who he can trust and who he doesn't really need to tell things to. Blue is calm and calculated. He appears calm in the face of bad and good news. Even as a child, we see that he did not accept facts at face value. He was always questioning everything. He was able to rise up his ranks by working out exactly what you should say and what you shouldn't say. So he was very good at playing the game. Blue as well is a sign of commitment. He has a commitment to achieving his goal. He has basically got two goals, which is making a future for mankind despite the costs. So he goes at it whatever the cost. The negatives of Blue: loneliness, sadness. Due to his nature and also the fact that his list of people he can actually open up to is pretty short, just like Levi, he doesn't really express his emotions a lot. And it's very, very rare to see him smiling in Attack on Titan. There are a few moments, but those moments are kept to a bare minimum. So most of the time he doesn't really express himself and he keeps how he actually feels a secret. Again, we noted the slip in the hospital scene where he ends up smiling when he learns that the Titans are in fact humans. This does happen in front of Levi, so he is thankfully not doing it in front of somebody he doesn't really want to be smiling in front of. Show us, the audience, as well, that there's something a little bit more going on, and he's a little bit colder in that sense as well. But he is also smiling because he finally has learned some of the truth. He's learned something. He's made progress in learning the truth and taking a step forward in being able to clear his father. Let's look at some odd features. So normally we don't have much in this section for characters, but there's a few little bits and pieces we need to mention. He has got very thick, bushy eyebrows, hence the childhood nickname, or the nickname from indeed the author of Attack on Titan. Erwin loses his right arm to a Titan whilst he is saving Erwin from the armoured Titan, and that indeed is the same arm that everybody does the famous salute on. Erwin's birthday. Erwin is born October the 14th, making him a Libra, which is literally the sign of justice and balance. It's also a very analytical, very logical sign. And it's also a very loyal sign. So Libras tend to have very sharp minds, which is perfect for Erwin. He is a very smart man. He is able to devise, simply as he's just a scout leader, that he comes up with a plan for the long-distance enemy scouting formation. This is a formation that is supposed to minimise casualties on the open field, and he ends up implementing this formation, despite the fact that Shardis rejects it. So Shardis is the man he takes over from as the commander of the Survey Corps. Often or not, Erwin would lose fewer casualties, while Shardis would end up being often the only person alive after his charges. Let's look at the art style. There's not too much to say in this section for once, and some sections in this breakdown, there's less to say than there would be in the previous ones. Erwin's design is very, very clean. There's no harsh shading. His eyes are his most prominent feature. And alongside that, he has a very, very solid face, a nice soft jawline, and his eyes are often focused in on. So they are often very, very detailed. But again, Attack on Titan, the anime, is very good at doing eyes. And we can see his determination and his passion. He is often shown looking very, very stoic, which is similar to the other commanders. And he is very easy to spot in a crowd because he basically just stands way above the rest. So he stands out, just like a leader should. Let's look at the colour palette. So colours associated with Erwin, we've got that very nice blonde, the brown being a very natural, down-to-earth, reliable, wise colour. The icy blue of the eyes, again, the calm calculatedness. The white and green. We will talk about green a little bit later on in the clothing section. Due to the fact that there is a natural palette here, we don't see any bright colours, and this leans into the fact that he's not often shown as very expressive. Right at the end, during his last stand, we do see him very, very expressive. But I think even the most solitary characters, or the characters who don't really give much away, if when faced with their own deaths, I think it is very hard to stay composed. To be fair, to note that exact scene as well, he doesn't cry. There is no breaking down on his part. He rides on, looking absolutely terrified, but nonetheless, he still rides forward and continues his charge, going out in a blaze of glory. Let's look at the clothing. This section is going to be a difficult section. Characters often in uniform are very difficult to analyse because the uniform itself represents an institute, a company, and in this case, the military. That is not representative of the actual individual. We know that we basically always see him in the uniform. Even in his off time, people would recognise him as simply being that military figure, that head, that lead. And he basically spends most of his life working for the military. So the fact that he's always shown in it is also laying into the fact that Erwin dedicates his life to the military. Doesn't show us his actual personality. So that's why this is quite difficult. Erwin also wears his uniform to the book. He is a leader, therefore he has to set the example. So there's not really much room to show us any flares or unique quirks with his get-up. He wears the Survey Corps uniform, which includes that green cape, and he also wears a greatcoat like the other commanders do, camouflage green greatcoat. But there is one teeny tiny subtle detail that we can mention in this section, and that is the green bolo tie. All the commanders within the Survey Corps, the military, they all have their own bolo ties, and these are all different colours. But Erwin's is emerald green, and that is probably all I really need to go from because it's very important. That is a sign of hope. People look to him as a figurehead, a sign of hope. They often will see him on the battlefield and feel better. He is there to raise the morale. It is a sign, a colour of prosperity, rebirth and renewal. He basically destroys the old fake king, the old system, and replaces it with the correct queen, which is Historia. He gives the people a new hope. It's also a sign of luck. He ends up surviving with only one missing arm whilst he saves Erwin, but many lose their lives that day. We end up losing quite a few good characters during that battle. He also is able to turn the military coup into an advantage and ends up making history. The negative side of green, deceitful. Erwin hides a personal goal under the guise of the fact that he's trying to restore humanity to the top of the food chain. He simply longs to prove that his father is innocent and was correct, that there is more going on under the surface, there is a secret. He wants to know what that hidden history really is, but he also has to hide this because everyone around him is fighting for the good of humanity, so he needs to be very careful with the fact of who he tells this goal to. Right at the end, note he does tell Levi his true goals, his true feelings. So what exactly is his goal? This is a new section I'm adding in for Erwin and Erwin only because I couldn't really give you a great deal on clothing, whilst other characters I can do that. I can go into a lot of detail there. So we're going to look at his goal. Erwin's initial goal is to restore humanity to the dominant species, overtaking the Titans. He wants to restore their future. However, he is also willing to do this at whatever costs. He stands upon a mountain of lives. He has sacrificed his own arm for Erwin. He ends up giving up his own life. But he does also eventually abandon his own personal goal to continue and support this goal. He gives up his own life for this very cause. His goal, the way he goes about it, how he's trying to go about restoring humanity, that comes with a very high price. It comes with the weight of hundreds and hundreds of lives upon his shoulder. There's quite a nice sequence before he dies. Levi asks, "Can you see our fallen comrades? They're all watching us." It kind of rings hard and it hits home to Erwin because Erwin does know exactly what's going on and he is aware of the weight of the lives around him. So this also maybe adds to the fact that Erwin is seen with quite a serious demeanour, but it is the fact that he's not really got a great deal to smile about. His role is one where he can't take it lightly, and there's a lot of people who have given up their lives for his cause. He is willing to abandon his men at one point to go and look in the basement to try and get a stab at seeing what's actually in there for his own purpose. But that continues until Levi tells him that the eyes of the fallen comrades are watching. He eventually ends up agreeing to sacrifice his life for the same cause. He takes himself out as a hero and that symbol of hope. Erwin has a gift of words and speech. His words are so powerful that they reach the hearts and convince men, women, both alike, to throw away their lives for the greater good. He is able to convince our new recruits in quite a dramatic scene to join the Survey Corps, despite the fact that there is a very high chance of dying. The fact that this corps in particular has a very high turnover, but he's able to sway their hearts and reach them. He can motivate people. He's a very good motivational speaker. He is the leader by his stature, his looks, his words, actions, and his eyes. Into the random facts section. I've got quite a few random facts, and one of them might make you a little bit sad. Let's start with the sad one and then we'll get better. Erwin died single by his own choice. He refused to marry and date because he simply didn't know how long he would live. He didn't want to leave behind a widow, which is very, very tragic and makes it just... When I learnt that, the first time I read that, I felt so bad. I felt awful for him. But it is a very smart and considerate choice he's made because he has dedicated his life to the military, to finding out the truth. He knows he's probably going to lose his life during this. Currently, the anime is still airing. Season 4, Part 1 is currently airing as I speak. The finale is due around fall. The manga is due to end in April 2021 this year. It's going to be the end of an era. The anime is carrying an 8.4 for season 1 and 2 on MAL, 8.5 for season 3 part 1, and a 9.1 for season 3 part 2 and for 4 part 1. But with season 4, I suspect that score will either go up or down depending on how that is handled. Erwin's last stand, that symbolises the end of a chapter. After he goes down, there is a complete scene shift. We end up in Mali. So we basically say goodbye to the walls and Wall Maria. All of that bit vanishes. We end up in a different town, a different land altogether. Erwin is succeeded by Hanji. He did actually hold the role for 5 years. So he was the commander of the Survey Corps for 5 years and he was the 13th commander, which is lucky or unlucky to some. Erwin ended up saluting with his left hand once he lost his right. This generally was considered incorrect and wrong, but it basically shows us that undying resolve, that even with a missing arm, he will still salute. He will still salute for mankind and he won't stop. He will do anything he can to achieve his goal, and losing an arm won't stop him. He sacrificed his own humanity for the good of his goal. So sometimes people say you have to become the monster to defeat the monster. Erwin sacrificed his own humanity. In the last comments now, let's go to the final section. He's a very complex character to break down. He's definitely the hardest breakdown I've had to do so far, but I still want to talk about him because he is my all-time favourite character from Attack on Titan. So I was not deterred. I had to do something and I wanted to talk about him not regardless. His design is subtle. There's not a lot given away, but he's also that kind of character who doesn't give a lot away unless it's needed. He is a natural born leader, gifted with the idea of words. He's often portrayed as stoic and he carries a very heavy burden, the weight of many lonely lives leaning upon his. His green bolo tie is the symbol of hope and it also reminds him of his goal, and even in the very end, when he is facing death, he carries it out to the very end. We do see a very tiny waver in his resolve right at the end before he ends up riding out, where he wants to abandon his men to go and have a look in the basements, but he ends up abandoning his dream, this goal for the greater good. So he ends up abandoning what he wanted to do and doing what the right thing was. So he did the right thing in the end. He wanted to prove that his father was correct and the fact that there were secrets and more going on. But even when he died, this goal was actually achieved. So he may not think it, and he might have died thinking it was for nothing. But that goal was achieved. We do know what's in the basement. We do know about Marley and the big secrets because that's where season 4 is right now. He is not as heartless as people may think. It's often something that is associated with him. A lot of people believe he's a heartless character. He's not. We do know that the deaths of his comrades do weigh heavily upon his mind. Through Levi's own words, where he says, "Can you see them?" Erwin also turns a little suicidal. We see him start to waver and the fact that it is playing on his brain. So in those very last moments, we get to see the real Erwin coming out. The Erwin that is terrified by the prospect of dying. But he ends up going out in one of the most emotional stands of the season. To end up distracting Zeke, our Beast Titan, Levi needed to take a chance to kill him. So we needed that last charge, that charge by Erwin himself, to get that chance to wipe out one of the Titan shifters. Let's talk about the white horse that Erwin ends up upon. He ends up leading the charge upon a white horse like a true knight in shining armour. He rides to his death. White being a symbol of innocence, often enough, white lilies are given at funerals. So that white horse was the foreshadowing element in this part. We knew he was going to die. He is a hero nonetheless upon his death, and the final battle may actually lend to the reason why part 2 of season 3 has such a high score on Mal, because it really was an emotional sequence which was perfectly shot and perfectly voice acted as well. We have to give some credit to the voice actors for doing such an amazing job of carrying such a heavy character. He is a very wise character, and even as a child we know he never accepted anything at face value, but sadly this curiosity leads to his dad indirectly being killed by the interior police, where he ends up wising up even further and he ends up hiding his goals, raising up his ranks and becoming the leader. But during this as well, he ends up becoming harder and harder to analyse because he hides more and more stuff. Overall, he is a very fascinating character. Humanity was given a great chance by his actions, and he removed the false king and the barrier between them and the truth. His colour really is that green, that beautiful hope colour, the renewal, the rebirth, where he became the wings of freedom, and he ends up leaving those behind with access to the basement, the truth, and leading us into the events of the finale and season 4. He is my favourite character, and his death really was one of the saddest moments for me personally. I understand why Armin was chosen to be saved, but again, it doesn't make it any easier because I'm just such a big Erwin fan. Erwin himself saw the value within Armin. He saw the gift, he saw the natural leader that was building up within Armin, and as well, little spoiler on the end there as well, it is indeed Armin who becomes the 15th leader of the Survey Corps. So Erwin acknowledged this. I'm sure he would basically be okay with it being Armin who ends up replacing him anyway. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to another episode of What's in a Design. There are 2 more characters I need to bring to you guys before I see how it did overall. 5 episodes, see how you guys react, if you like them or not, and then decide if I'm going to continue. So this is episode 3. I've got 2 more to come out, and then I'll analyse and see how things went. I really have had so much fun doing this series, even just for myself, because I learn so much. There's a lot I get to learn. Erwin was difficult. I can't actually express how difficult he was to break down. There are some great people out there who have done proper full analysis and research, and they've written reviews and essays. I planned to keep this within 25 minutes-ish roughly, so I had to do the bare basics of what I could. He's a very complex character. There is a lot more going on, but if you're simply looking at his overall design, it is subtle compared to some of these people like Sakaido or Yato from last week. He is very hard to read compared to those two, and I thought Sakaido was difficult, but no. Erwin takes the biscuit for being complex and also very hard to read, but he is a great character. He also is to thank for many different achievements like catching the female titan, reducing casualties on the battlefield. He's a man who is decorated. He's got a huge success, and he's had many successes in the battle, and as a commander, he probably achieved the very most that we could. He achieved more than Shardis did, anyway. Thanks to his own actions, it bridged the way to season 4 and to continue the plot, and allowing them to have another stab at trying to raise up humanity to where it should be. So as for where the next season goes, it's going to be very interesting to see how the new studio handles the final airing season. I'm on episode 5 right now, and they're handling it well. I think it's definitely going very, very well. It's very faithful for the manga as well, so I can't wait to see this giant come to an end. It's been an amazing era of a fantastic anime, and I'm so thankful that I got wrapped up in it and I ended up watching Attack on Titan season 1 in the first place, because I avoided it for a year because of the hype, and then I picked it up and I was like, actually, you know what? The hype was real. I hope you guys are taking care of yourself and you found at least something interesting in this video. Sorry it wasn't my usual in-depthness with the details. He's just very, very complicated, guys. But I love him nonetheless. He's a very fantastic character. I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves. Have a good one. And if you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. Bye-bye, guys.